Hello, everyone in construction land. Welcome to another episode of Constructive Conversations. I'm your host, Eddie Thompson with Brown Edwards and Company. Today, we have a very special guest. I say special in the dirt world arena, in construction in general. He's very well known on social media and just in the community of construction. So if you have not seen his podcast, seen his videos, make sure you Google my guest here, Mr. Aaron Witt. Aaron is the founder of Build Witt, host of the Dirt Talk podcast, and self-proclaimed chief dirt nerd. Correct, Aaron?
Super. Yep.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me, Eddie.
I would greatly appreciate you taking the time. Like I mentioned earlier, I got hooked up with you through the Contractors Association of West Virginia, who recently had you at their mid-year meeting in Panama City, not Panama City Beach in Florida, but the one across the ocean there. So I appreciate those people over there for getting us hooked up, and for your people also coordinating this recording today.
Definitely.
So, Aaron, for someone who's never heard of Dirt World, what if you were talking to a 6-year-old, how could you explain Dirt World to them?
The dirt world is everything we rely upon every day to keep our lives moving. It's the earth moving that creates the foundation for homes, for roads. It's the pipelines that keep water flowing to and from our houses. It's the power lines keeping society energized. It's the critical infrastructure that, again, humans could not live without. We, years ago wanted to make up a little bit more fun of a term for heavy civil construction and infrastructure. We didn't have the right term for it, so we made it up and we called it the dirt world. And sure, it is earth moving, but it's concrete, it's asphalt, it's pipe, it's power lines, it's anything that keeps society moving every day of the week.
Good deal. So let's go back to the origin story of where this all came from. So you've written about growing up far from blue collar, seeing a construction project and cold calling for a job. So what exactly clicked in that moment whenever you decided to pursue this avenue?
Yeah, my dad was a tax lawyer. He was retired as a director at Deloitte. You couldn't choose a more white collar job than that. And that was the world I came up in. But like a lot of little kids, and young boys, I loved bulldozers since I could walk. I always had a digging area in the backyard. I loved seeing heavy equipment as I drive to work or drive places. But I didn't have any direct exposure to it. Fortunately, both my father and my mother, they gave me a blank slate in life. And they said, listen, we've raised you to be independent, to do the best you can be. So figure it out. And that was where I was, 17 years old, trying to figure it out. What do I do with my life? Because school doesn't help you. And my parents weren't pushing me in one direction, thank goodness. So as I was thinking about that, this construction project started happening in my neighborhood, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was it was a 385 excavator. It was digging 25 feet deep. It was putting in 108-inch concrete pipe. And I didn't know all these specifics at the time. I just thought, what is that? And I want to be around that all the time. And so after high school, every day, when I wasn't working, I'd go there in the afternoons and just watch the work happen. And one day I thought, all the trucks going in and out had Pearson Construction Corporation on the side. So I Googled Pearson Construction Corporation. I found their phone number and I called the office and I asked to meet with Mr. Pearson, Rich Pearson. And he fortunately agreed to meet with me. So one day after high school, I drove down to their corporate office and asked him for a job. And fortunately, he gave me a job when I turned 18. So a week after graduating high school, whenever it was, I started as a laborer on a pipe crew. My first time ever on a construction site. And that was it. I knew construction was for me from that point on. And I've been here since.
Awesome. In a little bit, we'll talk about the skilled trades and people that were in the position you were in of not having exposure to construction early in life, but now with trade schools, and I see it firsthand with my nephew and some other people locally, how they're getting exposure when they're in school and know that's their path right out of school. We'll talk about that here in a little bit though. But your story is similar to mine, except for I grew up blue collar and was first in my family to go to college. And while I was in college, I worked at the Winfield Locks and Dam for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under a college program. And while I was there, I was real fortunate to be able to watch them build a new lock chamber. Wow. It was for this area on the Canal River. At the time, the Kanawha River had the most coal east of the Mississippi that flowed through in regards to tonnage. And the Winfield Locks, where I worked at, was had the most coal in terms of tonnage flow through that chamber along that river. So they built a brand new big chamber. I got to see a mountain of dirt moved in the other direction. The biggest hole I've ever seen. Got to walk down in it after they poured the chambers themselves. Got to walk through the channels that were in it where the water would be pumped in and out. Big enough that you could drive a car through, and just got to see that whole process of dirt moving and concrete pouring, and then the final culmination of all of that. And what was interesting, the best part about it is whenever I graduated, a friend of ours called me and said, "Hey, our firm needs is looking for a new associate. Please send me your resume." And I got on with that firm at the time. It was Chambers Paterno and Associates, and they were the premier construction CPA firm in West Virginia at the time. And I went right into working with contractors. So I got that exposure while I was in college. I guess I would consider CPA a white collar job, but I get to roll up my sleeves and work with contractors every day. And that's what I've got to do for the last 27 plus years. So similar, but not similar story. But we both have had a passion for contractors ever since we were about the same age, even though
Yeah, I
I'm
think
about 20 years older.
I mean, I think you have to love it. This is a tough world. If you don't love it, if you love it pretty quick. And if you do, I think it's necessary to do it. But if it's your thing, it's your thing. There's no other place like it.
So let's fast forward. You start sharing photos and lessons that you've learned along the way. At what point did you realize Build Witt was your future?
Still trying to figure out if it's my future or not. My plan, Rich Pearson, he gave me some great career advice. He said, go to engineering school. So I did. I went to engineering school. I barely passed. I was like a straight C student, but I passed. I made it, and they can't take it from me at this point. While I was in school, he said, go try a bunch of stuff. So I worked for 5 different construction companies while I was in school to just try a bunch of stuff to figure out what I liked. And when I graduated, I went to Texas to work in road construction for a mid-sized company. My plan was to get some experience, save up, and then potentially start my own construction company, late 20s, early 30s, whenever that might be. But when I was 22 years old, just starting my official career in construction post graduating, I started to put pictures of my brief time in the industry on the internet just for fun, just to build my brand as an individual. Because I thought if I could build my brand, then I'd have more career prospects. I'd be able to navigate the industry a little bit more efficiently. But pretty quickly, it started to grow. I was doing something that wasn't being done before. It was really high quality storytelling in the construction industry, which to people now seems pretty obvious. I think it's been done everywhere at this point, but at the time there just wasn't a lot of it in the industry. And I thought, well, why don't I create the images that I can't find that I want to see? And as I started to do that, people started to take notice. And pretty quickly after I started my career, I started BuildWit just before my third birthday, moved back in with my parents, quit my job, great job out in Texas with a software company at that point, who recruited me from construction because of my online following, and bought a fancy Sony camera and started to run around the United States to any job site that would have me. And that was the early days of BuildWit. There was no business plan. There was no strategy. It was try to find companies that would let me on their job sites. I would take pictures of their job sites for the sake of recruitment. I would try to put them on social media. I would try to get them to pay me. If they paid me, they liked it, maybe they would pay me again. And 126, I had a business. Over the following few years, we created a marketing agency focused exclusively on civil construction and mining within the United States. Everything we did was primarily for the sake of workforce development, building the brands and images of sometimes these very long-standing construction companies to bring in the next generation. And then over the past few years, we've since sold the marketing business to focus on training development, software, and an annual event called the Ariat Dirt World Summit to develop the next generation of leadership. So everything we do now is all dedicated to building the dirt world's next generation. And that doesn't mean just the young people coming in. That means the next generation of leadership. That means the next generation of company, the next generation of project, the next generation of approach to projects. Everything we're doing is built on the future of the industry, and we're trying to build a business to help the industry get there.
And all of that can be found on Build Witt's website, correct?
Yeah, BuildWit's website now is targeted towards our software product, the daily training and development software that we have, BuildWit Improve, and then we have a separate Dirt World site. What I do, I don't really do either one of those things. I do the third leg of the stool, which is storytelling for the company to build our brand and to grow the industry's brand. So the more people we can reach with our stories within the world, the more likely they'll potentially join the industry. And then the more it grows the BuildWit brand, our business, which then allows us to impact more people. So me specifically, I spend most of my time podcasting, speaking, and then visiting job sites, not just in America anymore, but all over the world to explore the industry and to share it online with now millions, tens of millions of people.
Yeah. And leading up to this recording, as a unprofessional podcast host, like I told you I am, I was told by another guest at one time that just to be able to do a good interview, you want to make sure that you research your guests and, come up with some good questions through researching and checking out their background. And I've watched a lot of your videos in the process and listened to a lot of your podcasts in the process of researching for this podcast. And yeah, I just have to say they're very entertaining, and people definitely need to be getting on YouTube, getting on there wherever they get their podcasts, and watching your videos and listening to your podcast.
I appreciate it.
Very entertaining and informative. To be a good teacher, sometimes you have to be entertaining, and you're able to do both in those regards. So I do commend you for that.
Well, and it's not hard because I love it. People ask me, I was at ConExpo last week and they're like, how do you choose where you go for videos? And it's like, I don't know, whatever I find cool, that's where we go.
Mhm.
And when you find something cool, when you're excited to be somewhere, you don't have to fake your excitement to be somewhere. Or when you're excited to talk to somebody, I don't need to act excited. I just talk to them and it naturally emanates. And I've believed in that since day one. I've never done work that I'm not excited about, which is great. And it sounds privileged and it is privileged, but it's also been a very disciplined approach, especially when there wasn't a lot of work coming around in the early days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've put yourself in this position, so you've earned your way to the point where you can do this and you can go to job sites that you're excited about. So it's not really privileged. It's something that you've earned through
Yep.
all your hard work and building your brand and building your podcast and your videos. So I mentioned you are the chief dirt nerd. What's the nerdiest dirt world related thing that you've ever been irrationally excited about in any way?
I made that up years ago when I was starting out, like really early days. I was on Instagram first and foremost, but someone was like, you've got to get on LinkedIn if you want to connect with the industry. And when I went on LinkedIn, it was pretty bland, pretty boring, and it still is. Now it's even worse with all the AI nonsense and captions people are writing. But I wanted to stand out on LinkedIn, and what better way to stand out than to make up a title? So I just made up Chief Dirt Nerd, and for whatever reason, it stuck. I'm the only one there. I made it up because again, I'm not like a soils guy. I'm not a geotech. I just love earth moving. I love material being moved from point A to point B, and I've been able to see it done in so many different ways. So I could tell you, we could sit here for days and talk about stories of different earth moving projects, mining projects around the world. Most recently, 2 weeks ago, I was up in the Northwest Territories at a diamond mine. Flew into Yellowknife, Canada. We then drove 12 hours by ice road. It's 85% over frozen lakes
Hmm.
up to the mines. It's the only way to drive to the mines, and it's accessible only six weeks a year when the ice is thick enough for heavy haul traffic. There's 3 diamond mines situated up on these islands within these lakes, very, very far north. And we got to go to one of them thanks to Rio Tinto Diavik. So not only did we get to see the underground mining, the pits, the mills, but then you see all this dirt and rock getting moved. But then it's like, well, what is it all for? We got to go to the final diamond splitting facility where they finish the diamonds, and there on the table is a table full of raw diamonds that's from the earth. And it's just, to me, it's incredible that most people don't understand how the world works. They just mistakenly assume that because my entire life, when I hit the switch on the wall, the lights come on. I just assume that is the state of affairs. When I turn the faucet on, water comes out. When I need to go somewhere, I can just get on a road. But all of that has to originate from somewhere. And that's what I love about the dirt world. And the opportunities that I have, it's how the world works. It's where everything comes from. Everything comes from the ground in some shape or form. That's where everything around us begins. whether it's forestry, whether it's oil and gas, or whether it's mining and earth moving. So it's I think that's the coolest thing about it is you have all these facts and figures, so on and so forth. But I think the coolest thing about it, and it's nerdy, but it's also very mainstream, is that again, no one can live without this world. Not a single day.
And I can see you getting excited about it whenever you were just talking about all that. So some people may say that's nerdy, but I think that's just passionate about what you love to do and see and learn about. Definitely. All right, so you've spent this time building your brand with Build Wit and your videos. You're able to launch your Dirt Talk podcast, which correct me if I'm wrong, it's the Ariat Dirt Talk podcast. You have
Uh,
a sponsor?
it was. They've been a great. They're sponsoring the vlog now and our Dirt World Summit. But yeah, it's the Dirt Talk podcast.
Cool. I have besides Brown Edwards being my sponsor of my podcast, I created my own brand
Nice.
a sponsor, the Yeti Cup, Yeddie.
Well done.
I haven't made any money off that yet, but we'll see
Maybe one day.
one day. So let's talk about your Dirt Talk podcast. How many episodes are you up to?
We've done it 500 something times now. The numbering got messed up along the way. We did a lot of half episodes, but yeah, 500 plus episodes in. Started it in 2020. Dan Briscoe, who leads sales and marketing for our business now, he was with us at the time and he kept hounding me about a podcast and I put it off for about a year. I was honestly afraid about it. I knew I'd be terrible at it and I didn't want to jump in. I didn't want to make myself be even more like an idiot because I was at the time doing all kinds of social media and I was already trying to figure enough out. But I finally, with COVID going on, relented, was like, all right, I'll start a podcast. And I started just getting people that I'd met in the industry on. A lot of them were friends and we've been continuing it since. So it's now 2 parts, 2 episodes a week. One episode is a very brief 15 to 20-minute episode on what's happening within BuildWit week to week. So it's who we're hiring, what issues we're working through. Maybe somebody resigned. We've got a cool thing coming out. I'm trying to give people insight into how we're building our business to serve the dirt world, which has been a lot of fun. And then every Thursday, we publish a long form video or long form episode, maybe 2 hours or so, a little less, a little more, where I'm talking to anybody from a friend of mine who is a welder to CEOs of some of the biggest contractors in America.
So how do you come up with your guests though? What's the hook that you're looking for, like your target audience, and how do you know what topics are going to pique their interest?
I don't think about the audience at all. I just talk to who I want to talk to and who I find interesting. So in the past, and I think a lot of businesses make this mistake, everybody now has a podcast because they think it's, well, if we're marketing, we need a podcast. And they make it all about themselves and the company. And it's not all that interesting. They try to use it as like a tool to get the business ahead. And there's so much noise in the world. There's not a lot of value to that. We've used it as a tool too, or we've tried to, and I just haven't enjoyed it. And that's reflected in the content. Whereas when I'm talking to people that I'm really excited to sit down with for a few hours and just chat with, it ends up being something hopefully worth listening to. And it has been. So that's how I view it. Is I like my videos, like my social content. I just talk to people I want to talk to.
I think that's a great approach. I've tried with this podcast to put out content that is informative for the construction industry, not just here in West Virginia, but regionally. Our firm encompasses Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and spread out a little bit throughout the United States with different clients. But the content, even though it's a construction podcast, it's always been about what's going to help people. And like you said, who's cool to talk to. I've been real blessed with having you as a guest, having a few other people as a guest that I would never have talked to not in my wildest dreams would have talked to before. Yeah, just to be able to have a good conversation, and it's something that people are going to enjoy and get some benefit out of. Because I mean, like I said, I'm a CPA. This isn't something a CPA would typically do, is have a construction podcast. But this makes life fun, is to be able to not just come here and crunch numbers at the office, but also get to sit and talk to people like you.
No, it's the coolest thing. And there's a lot of different whys for podcasts. Like before someone starts a podcast though, you should probably define why. What's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? My objective is to just get the industry exposed to different ideas that they wouldn't normally be exposed to. And it's a blast. It's the coolest thing to just sit down with somebody as part of my job for sometimes hours and just talk to them. No phones in the room. I leave my phones outside of the room. We have dinner. We have a great time. I get to know this individual in a much deeper sense than I would otherwise. And then I hope to get their ideas in front of our audience to then potentially help our audience grow their businesses, their teams, themselves as leaders. So it's such a fun format when you do it right. It is, though, it's a really weird skill to try to get your head around, and it's taken me years to get to where I am, and I feel like I'm only scratching the surface. It's such a unique art form.
So you also have a newsletter that you put out. Is it monthly or every other week or
Weekly.
weekly?
Yeah.
And how can people get a hold of that? How can they subscribe to it?
That's a great question. It's through my LinkedIn channel and then through our website. LinkedIn is our best way to distribute it now if you go to my profile, but it's called Building Build Wit. I've always had a newsletter for many years, but I was trying to figure out maybe this time last year how to put a different spin on the newsletter and provide value in a different way. We've had investors now for quite a few years, and with our investors, I've always done a weekly email. So I have to back up further. Every week, our leadership team fills out a debrief, and so it's wins and lessons learned. So you'll have some wins. I was on this podcast. I had a great trip to Arizona. Tomorrow, I'm having my friend Casey on the podcast. Whatever it is, and then here are some lessons I've learned this week. And so the whole company fills out this debrief document. It's just a little bit per person, but then it ends up being a pretty nice sized document. And I sit down on Saturdays and I read through it selfishly for me, first and foremost, to just maintain my situational awareness. We're not all in the same office. We're split up all over America, and I'm traveling around the world. So it's nice to at least once a week come back down to earth and figure out what the heck's happening so that I can lead and support as I need to. And then I'll take the high points and I'll publish, and I have for years, a brief email to our investors like, here's what happened this week. And then I'll record a 5-ish minute video to our team that I publish every Monday on here's what happened last week so that you all are aware as well, which is one of the best things I've done internally for the sake of communication. And then I've taken all of that and I've made it a public facing newsletter as well so that people can follow along. Because our goal is, again, our mission is to build the dirt world's next generation. It's not just us doing that. It's the whole industry that needs to do that. And we're just there to support. And so I want the industry following along, not just with me, but our business. I want them to feel like they're part of it because in a lot of ways they are. And this is my goal, my at least my attempt at doing that. And it all stems to one of our values, transparency wins. I've been a big believer in just telling people everything since the early days of business. And so it's the newsletter, Building Build Wit. It's an extension of that. It's the good, bad, and different. There's a lot of stuff. I won't get into details on financials or anything like that at this time, but if someone unexpectedly resigns, I'll talk about that. If I screw up, I'll talk about that. If I travel somewhere, I'll talk about that. If we release a new part of the product, great. So it's wins, it's losses, it's everyday mundane happenings. It's just here's what happened to Bill this week.
Like you said, full transparency.
Yeah, yeah. It's just yeah. The value are we've never had to change that value. Transparency wins. It's like if you're trying to figure out what your next move is when there's a fork in the road, the more transparent way is probably always the right way to go. And it's not always the most fun way, but in the short term, in the long term, you just won't lose being honest with people. But
Mhm.
that's easier said than done. And it's very rare in business.
So that segues perfectly into the next two topics I wanted to talk about. So moving on to workforce development and retention. Like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna talk about this. I'm a big proponent of the skilled trades. Going into that for a lot of kids that are in high school. I know when I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I had no direction. My dad was a mechanic, and the guidance counselors, they just weren't pushing different careers at us. I had an uncle, actually my mom's cousin, was a geotechnical engineer in Hawaii, owned his own business, and I thought, wow, I could be an engineer, own a business in Hawaii, That sounds great. Had no idea what engineering was. I went to one of our local colleges for engineering, spent 1 year there, got just a glimpse of what engineering was and decided, I don't think this is for me. So I transferred schools, went to another school, got my accounting degree. Long story short, I had no guidance on where to go with my life. I just stumbled into public accounting by chance, basically. Nowadays, kids are being educated early on about the benefits of the skilled trades, moving on from after their freshman year in high school to the vocational schools, learning a trade, electrician, plumbing, heavy equipment operator, different things, and the benefits of coming out of college or coming out of high school with no student debt into the workforce, making as much money as a lot of people that go to college for 4 years come out of college and start making. It's great for people. College isn't for everybody, and that's something that I've always tried to preach to people is that some people are built for skilled trades. Some people are built to go to college. Neither one is any better than the other. And I think it's been a driving force that people have been trying to hammer home to people, and it's catching traction because there's been a real deficit in the skilled labor's trades, especially around here in West Virginia. I know surrounding areas, it seems like it's been a national problem, but I'm hoping that starting to correct itself. So can you talk about like you're talking about workforce development and retention? What are you seeing in regards to the skilled trades shortage and how people are being led into that area and being attracted to working for construction companies?
I think what people have to understand is that the world is different. I used to criticize people that were longtime leaders in the construction industry saying you don't get it. And their response, rightly so, is, well, you don't get it, you punk. What do you know? And it's like, yeah, what do I know? And it's not that what the industry has done is wrong, because it's got everybody here, but everybody knows it's not right going forward, or else we'd have all of the workers we need. People would be healthy. People would be happy. Everybody would be financially sound, which they're not. Everybody knows that the industry is sick right now. And my talking point now is that, well, what if it's not everybody else? What if it's us that needs to get better? Like, what if we as leaders, what if the person looking back at us in the mirror is responsible here? And I think we can talk about all of these externalities, like the college conversation, for example. I've always struggled with that, though, because I went to college and it was great. And I would recommend college. It was a really, really beneficial 4 years for me. And I didn't get a lot of debt doing it. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. And I'm not necessarily going to go up against this multi-trillion-dollar industry that's very entrenched in the United States of America and our government, et cetera. Like, I just don't know if that's a worthwhile fight. And I don't think that's something I have control over. What I do have control over is me as a leader and how I can be better. And I think that's where the industry needs to focus. So going back to this change, in previous generations, we didn't have this skills gap because a lot of people grew up around the trades. That's what the United States of America did. We made stuff, especially World War II, post-World War II. We were producing. And so most everybody, like yourself, like you just said, you grew up around it. And when you grew up around it, you naturally gained a work ethic, the ability to work with your hands. You gained a skill set without even knowing about it. And so you didn't just know about the trades, but you had legitimate skills to offer before you had even legitimate training. So we didn't really need something to bridge the gap because it was just this natural transition. But the United States, especially over just one generation, 2 generations, like my dad, he was born in the 50s. The world I'm living in now is dramatically different than when he was in his 30s. Dramatically different. Almost unrecognizable. And it's unrecognizable a lot mostly because the United States, we've retooled ourselves. We're focused mostly on finance, on real estate, on pharmaceuticals, on technology. We don't make stuff anymore here. We're a knowledge-based economy. And we could argue whether that's good or bad. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's here to stay, but it is what it is. And so now we have this whole generation. We still have all of these basic needs that need to be met. We still need water. We still need sewer. We still need roads. We still need power. We still need all of this stuff. And we still need people to do all of this stuff. But now we have a whole generation like me. I grew up in suburbia with a father who didn't work with his hands for a living. So at 18 years old, one, I don't even know that there's all these industries that keep my life moving because I've never been exposed to them. And 2, if I by dumb luck end up in one of them, which I did, day one, I have nothing to offer, nothing. But even worse now, not only do I not have a background skill set, but the training will be said to be on the job, but I can't make mistakes because of litigation, because of insurance requirements, because of XYZ. So now I'm double screwed because that's how the previous generation learned. They didn't just have this background skill set, but they could also learn by doing through making mistakes. If you talk to anybody, older school guy, hey, how'd you learn how to run equipment? They're going to tell me 58 different stories about how they rolled stuff and banged into stuff and got into all kinds of hairy situations, which is why they're such a great operator today. So that is the disconnect. But again, we can sit here and argue about why all day long. We can say everybody's going to college. We can say the next generation sucks, whatever it is. Or we can say, what if I just focus on me? And what if I'm part of the problem here? Which is a little scary at first because it means you're the problem, but it's empowering because if you're the problem, you can become the solution and you can focus on what you can control. And that is my message is, sure, this is scary. I understand. Sure, the world has changed. Yes, but the need for infrastructure is not going away anytime soon. And this is actually a brilliant opportunity to make the industry a lot better. We can make the industry so much better, but it starts with us as leaders getting better first. And that's what I talk about. And that's who I try to highlight. I'm not trying to sit here and say, look at me, I'm Mr. Smart Guy. I'm trying to sit here and say, look at all of these companies winning that I'm around all the time. This is why they're winning, because they have leaders accepting responsibility and they're focused not on the witchcraft of construction, the equipment strategy or the bidding strategy or the trade secrets that don't really exist. Go figure. They're focused on people. They're focused on them as leaders. They're focused on the leaders around them. And then they're focused on their workforce as a whole. That is where the future of the industry lies.
And that's probably the best explanation to that question that I've asked a few times already. That's probably the best explanation that I've gotten, and one of the most passionate explanations too.
I
But
appreciate it.
I think you're right on there. You're right on there. And just talk about leadership, because that just goes into the next part that we're going to talk about: workforce development and retention, and then leadership. I'm a big advocate for the principles of extreme ownership. And I've noticed, I did see that you had Jamie Cochran on the Dirt Talk podcast at one time too.
Jamie's unbelievable.
I just had Rob Jones, who's a Echelon front instructor. He was on my last two podcasts. We talked about his book, Put Your Legs On, and then he talked about on the next one, the 12 principles of extreme ownership. Very passionate about that. I've done a couple of presentations here at work on it. I've bought my coachees, the book, because I think that, like you said, it starts with us that have the experience and have been through it and have been around people that are winning. You're doing the right things and have made those mistakes. And then it's our job to lead them in the right direction. And I did notice when I was looking at your lineup for the area at Dirt World Summit that you do have Rob Jones and Dave Burke, both from Echelon Front, scheduled speakers.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. So what's the hardest leadership lesson that you've learned throughout your experiences?
There's been a lot of them. I just wrote a little bit about it the other day. It's been weird learning how to be a leader because I've simultaneously been learning who I am as a man. And you can imagine the impact of both of those things coming together. It creates complete chaos, pandemonium. And through the process of learning how to be a man and a leader, which I'm still learning, will continue to learn through my last breath, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've hurt a lot of people. And as I've hurt more and more people, the shame has grown greater and greater and greater. I've taken on that weight almost to an unbearable sense. And it's been, especially the past few years, really, really chaotic in all sorts of different ways. And over the past 6 months, 12 months, I've learned to forgive myself for a lot of these mistakes. Now, that's not to say I get out of taking ownership for them. I have to take ownership for these mistakes. They're my mistakes. And I better make something of them. They better just not be worthless. I better create some kind of value, learn something going forward to avoid future mistakes of the similar degree and to do better. But that's all I can do. So rather than learning, but then just carrying it around and beating myself up continuously, I've been trying to do a better job of shedding some of that weight, because along the way, did I mean to make these mistakes? No. And at the time, I was doing my best, and I'm still doing my best. So sure, I screwed up, but I was doing the best I could do at the time. And yes, I was completely incapable of whatever it was, but that still doesn't mean I was doing my best. And so I've been trying to be a lot more kind to myself as a leader, trying to forgive myself, to rid myself of the shame, to learn what I can, and then say, all right, I'm leaving this stuff behind because I have to go forward. I have to focus on becoming better as an individual. I have to focus on being better for those around me, helping them be better. And I can't do that when I'm carrying all of this baggage around from all of these mistakes I've made along.
Yeah. Man, that's just a fact of life. That's how we have to learn from experience. You have to fall and get back up and do it all over again and hope that you do it better the next time that you're doing it and pass those failures down to others as lessons, life
Yeah,
lessons.
and I'm convinced more and more that that's the only way to become a leader. You can read Extreme Ownership 100 times. You can listen to Jocko every episode. You can go to their muster, and I recommend all of those things. But that doesn't make you a leader. You have to build experience as a leader, and most of that experience comes from really painful failure. Really painful failure. The most painful is when you're hurting people, and that is part of leadership. And those are the most valuable lessons you'll learn as a leader, but there's no avoiding them. There isn't. I haven't seen a pathway in which someone has successfully navigated all of those lessons without stepping into some of the holes, without touching some of the stoves, or maybe I'm just the only one, but that's not the case. There's no easy way to do it. There's no
Right.
shortcut to do it. It's just doing your best, making mistakes, learning from them, rinse and repeat. Years and years and years and years and years go by, and maybe then you have some tools to start navigating some different situations, like I do now.
Yeah, there's not an amount of leadership courses or books or podcasts or anything like that that you can listen to or read and it automatically make you a great leader. It's like you say, it just comes from experience and failures.
Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the big things that you can't take extreme ownership without screwing something up. Like that's the whole point. So like, so the only way to practice extreme ownership is when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you make a mistake, it's like,
Right.
that's the whole principle, but you have to screw up first to even get to that opportunity to practice extreme ownership.
Well, it's funny whenever you're reading that book and it's talking about taking extreme ownership over situations, and you're like, you think of a time where, yeah, I screwed up in that situation and I didn't take ownership of it. I passed the buck, or I didn't meet a deadline and I made excuses. I let somebody else take the blame for something, and you're like, that all along that should have just been me taking ownership of that and learning from it
Yeah,
instead of passing it on.
they don't open the book with a story on the world's best mission and how everything went well, and
Right.
that when everybody came home and they just nailed it, Jocko was like, "We did it. I'm going to take extreme ownership here. This was the best mission ever." It was no, we nearly killed some of our own people.
Yeah.
It's
Will and
like,
blow.
yeah, it doesn't get a whole lot heavier. And that's again the whole book is here's what we screwed up, here's what we learned from it, here's how we took ownership. But yeah, it's a natural part of the equation is failure.
Yeah. Well, that's a great discussion about leadership, and I'm sure we could talk a lot more on it. Just for time's sake and to get through the rest of this, let's talk about the area at Dirt World Summit. Like I mentioned, I saw your lineup, couple Echelon Front members there. Looks like a great lineup of other people on there. That's happening November 4th through the 6th in San Antonio. Is that correct?
That was a previous year.
Oh,
This
I'm
year
way off.
is it's all right. No, it's this year is November 9th through 11th in Phoenix, Arizona. We out of 1,250 tickets have like significantly less than 100 to go. So we'll be sold out pretty quick, if not already, by the time this airs. It's been incredible. It's our fourth year doing it. We created the event to help elevate leadership in the dirt world. Go figure. And our first speaker at Dirt World was Jocko. Go figure.
Well,
Years ago at the first event in Houston, and we've had some of the best leaders and speakers in the world since at these events. It's incredible. And not only is the value just of the people on stage, but I would say the value is even more who is in the audience, because we've created a new event which is then brought in the leaders in the industry that are thinking future focused, that are looking ahead. They're not where the industry has been. They're not where the industry is. They want to know how they can get to where the industry is going, or they already are where the industry is going. And so you have a whole room of people. They're not guarded. They're not, "Oh, let's not talk until we get to the bar and have a few drinks." They're, how can I help? How can I make the people around me better? How can I get better? And we're all in this together, which I love. So sure, we have some great speakers, but honestly, anybody can pay a bunch of money to have great speakers, as I've learned, because that's kind of what we were doing in the early days. It's a brilliant community of people that are fu- focused on the future of the industry, which I think is the most special thing.
I've heard it's a great conference and well attended. It conflicts with a couple of conferences that we have this year, but we were looking to go to it, and hopefully next year we'll make the 2027 Dirt World Summit.
Hopefully. No, it's a great opportunity. Like I said, most everybody is civil construction company leaders, but we have a ton of, we have CPAs, we have lawyers, we have technology companies, we have equipment providers. Anybody that wants to make the industry better is welcome to be there. And it's a really fun few days.
So you just mentioned that you got back from the Northern Territories. You do a lot of traveling, visited job sites all around the world that can be witnessed on your YouTube videos. I especially like your trip to Dubai. But what country surprised you the most and how they do construction?
People ask me this a lot, and the answer pretty quickly, where my mind goes, is that the most surprising thing is how similar it is. It's very similar all over the world. And sure, there's nuances here or there, but it's very similar no matter where you go. And it's surprising, especially as an American, because the American perspective is pretty egotistical in this world. We think we're the best. And you start traveling and you start to realize that we're not the best, not even close. We're like, we should be best, but we're, I would say, middle of the pack. And most countries I go to are as good as we are, if not better. And so that's been most surprising to me, is actually where America stands in the world. And it bums me out because, again, we shouldn't be middle of the pack. We don't have to be middle of the pack. I'm going to dedicate my life to doing everything I can, doing my part to ensure that we get back on top, because that's where we should be. We should be leading the world, but we're not right now. And that was really the only way to learn that and to figure that out, was by seeing construction all over the world on, after this year, it'll be 6 of 7 continents.
Have you ever been on a job site out of the country and witnessed something that you would never see happen in the US? Maybe a situation where you're standing there and you're like, maybe I should be standing in this exact spot right now.
Every once in a while, but you'd be really surprised. It's pretty buttoned up everywhere. Like, sure, again, we think we're the safest. Not even close. Like, not even close. I see all kinds of sketchy stuff in the States. I've seen stuff outside of the States from a scale perspective that I would never see here. I mean, just some of the stuff I've seen in Western Australia or Saudi Arabia or even parts of Europe, it's just like, whoa, this is unbelievable. Just the scale, the scope, like how serious they are at whatever they're doing here. This is the big leagues, man. Like this is no joke. Those have been some of the things I've been surprised about, is just some of the scale and scope abroad that is just not present here. And especially, I mean, we have the dollars being spent here, the trillions of dollars, but you look around and is the world getting all that much better around you? Not necessarily, which again is a huge bummer. It's a huge missed opportunity. The infrastructure of our country, the roads, the bridges, the power grid, the water system, all of that's an indicator of the future. And if that's lagging, that means the future will be lagging. It's a leading indicator. And so again, I think we have some of our priorities wrong as the United States of America. We need to get back to building our country, to prioritizing us before others, before the world. And I want to help make that happen through what we're doing in the dirt world.
This might be a controversial question, whether you want to answer it or not. Do you see more waste going on in the United States as opposed to the dollars that are being spent abroad on projects?
You can just look at the statistics. It's worse and worse every year. It's unbelievable how much construction projects cost in America now and for how little we get as a result. Like, look at the California high-speed rail project. That's the most glaring example of how dysfunctional this entire system is. And how do you spend tens of billions of dollars on something that still has no hope of completion at this point. Tens of billions. Or the people mover, the thing going around right now on social media is the LAX people mover. I don't know how many billions it was. It was multiple billions for 2 miles of elevated track, which in other parts of the world would be a catastrophe. It's unbelievable. And there's all these people making all this money right now, these consultants, these who knows who. The money's going somewhere, but it's not most of it going to the actual construction, which is a huge shame because sure, companies profit in the short term, but it screws everybody in the long term. And that's what I'm starting to get more and more tired of is, oh, cool. The best example of this is we had under the Biden administration the most historic infrastructure bill in American history. It was $1 trillion or whatever it was. The cost of the United States interstate system, inflation adjusted, was $500 billion. We've spent a lot of that money at this point over the past 5-6 years. Is your life different? Is your life better? I don't know what
Yeah.
I've gotten for that. I drive around Nashville. It's just as screwed up as it was 5 years ago. We just spent $500 billion, $1 trillion on what? I don't even know. And I talked to some of the biggest construction executives in America now, and they're just like, yeah, I covered inflation. You're like, wait, what? We just spent $1 trillion in infrastructure and it covered inflation. Like, that doesn't scare you. That doesn't make you think like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And that's some of my qualms with a lot of these associations and these more traditional ways of going about things is like, we got more money this year. It's a huge win, but it's like, well, what are we getting for that money? We're getting less than ever before. And I know it per mile interstates right now, it's 3 times the cost, inflation adjusted, per mile of interstate. That's inflation adjusted. So per mile of interstate is 3 times what it was when we started building the interstate system. That to me, again, is not a good thing.
Yeah, we see a lot of road widening as far as interstates go, road widening projects, replacements of aging bridges. The bridge system in West Virginia is so aged that a lot of them need replaced or full replacements or deck replacements. But you drop through West Virginia right now and it's just you could spend a lifetime going over and paving the roads. The roads are I don't want to disparage the roads in West Virginia, but it's a pothole landmine everywhere you drive right now. And part of that's
Yeah.
coming out of winter, but it's just it's a cycle.
No, there's a huge opportunity. And again, I'm looking at it as an opportunity. I think it's a huge opportunity that is at our doorstep, and I'm excited to do my part in grabbing onto it. It's funny when Americans, when they criticize other countries for building stuff and prioritizing their country over others. And it's like, do you see what's wrong here? How could I criticize another country prioritizing itself?
Yeah, yeah,
To me, it's like, isn't that what you should be doing? But that's not what we're doing.
yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end here. I got a few more questions. We'll call this the lightning round of questions. So, what is your favorite job site sound?
Dozer backing up. Just love that sound, the clanking.
Yeah. Is that your favorite piece of equipment?
My favorite piece of equipment, I would say, is an excavator. Big
Yeah.
excavator guy.
Yeah.
But anything that moves dirt is good with me.
What's a book or podcast you recommend right now?
I just finished for the second time The Psychology of Money, which is the best personal finance book I've ever come across. And so if someone's looking to get better at personal finances and understand how the financial system works, that is the one book I'd recommend.
I'll have to look that one up. Your never again travel moment.
I mean, we've screwed a lot of stuff up, but I kind of view it as like the tax you pay to go travel in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I don't look at it as bad. It's not enjoyable in the moment, but it's just part of the game. Like, if you travel, you're going to get screwed. It's just a matter of time. And that's part of the game.
If you had one pitch to a skeptical parent about their kid considering the trades, what would it be?
I would say traditionally over the past few decades, we've pushed a lot of people into more quote unquote professional careers. And you can look at society, people are less happy and less healthy than ever before. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think a big reason is that they are doing work that is meaningless under fluorescent lights with people they don't like. They don't understand the role that they play in the world, and how can you as a human being have any sense of satisfaction when that's the case. And so while the trades is not for everybody, it is certainly not for everybody. No one in the trades has to doubt what they're doing in the world and why they're doing it.
Very good. So this one's more self-serving. Someone is traveling through Nashville on their way to Panama City Beach, and they have one night in Nashville. Where do they have to eat?
I like my favorites. Funny enough, I don't know Nashville all that well because when I'm home, I don't want to do anything. I have enough adventure in my life otherwise. But my favorite is 1230 Club downtown. It's a great, great dinner. There's live music, but it's not obnoxious. It is on Broadway. So if you want to go after dinner, have a little drink downtown and get a little wild, you can. If not, you can just go home. I think it's the perfect place to go.
Check that out. So my closing question, if you had 60 seconds with every contractor leader in America, what would you tell them to do next for their people?
Get better as individuals, get healthier, work on themselves mentally and physically, spend more time with their people, work on their communication, get better. That's my whole message is listen, the buck stops with you. I am the lid on the jar that is our company, that is our team. It's not to say that I'm the man or that I'm most important, but I am in many ways the limiting factor on the organization. And if I'm not getting better, I should not expect the organization, those around me, to be getting better. And so I would say get better. The industry, we need to get better. We're not healthy physically and mentally. We're not healthy financially. We're not a place people want to come to work, obviously, because that's what we've been talking about now for a decade plus. Well, what can we do about it? Well, I can't, again, control a lot of the outside factors, but I can control me as an individual. I can get better. If I get better, I inspire those around me to get better. They then inspire those around them to get better. And we create a huge, huge difference in not that much time.
Perfect. That's perfect. Well, Aaron, we're at the end of the episode. I want to tell you I greatly appreciate you taking a little bit over an hour of your time to talk with me and our listeners. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed your videos, your podcast, and just getting to learn about you on LinkedIn and social media and everything else. I look forward to maybe one day meeting you in person someday. Greatly appreciate and thank you for taking the time.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Well, there you all have it. This wraps up another edition of Constructive Conversation. Be sure to check this out on our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, this has been Eddie Thompson with Aaron Witt. So long, everyone.